Today we're going to be doing a deep dive into the incredible gameplay of IX Mike, a North American legend, ranked 78 player, and we're going to be specifically looking at his Wyvern gameplay. You guys might be saying, why Wyvern? This hero is probably the best position 5 right now. Currently on Dota 2 Pro Tracker, it's been picked 2,200 times in the last 8 days, which is insane for this website. I think it's the highest right now, and it has a 58% win rate. It is brutally uncommon to see a support with this high of a win rate because, you know, the higher and higher you get, the harder it is to have impact as a 5. I'm not saying you can't. IX Mike is a position 5 specialist and is rank 80, so if you tell yourself that you can't gain rank as a support, you're simply lying to yourself. But yeah, let's get into the match and talk about why this hero is so freaking broken. But nonetheless, if you're excited to learn a little bit about Dota and you want to learn more, go sign up to the GameLeap website right now. We post videos there every single day. I'm continuing to try to improve the content I make over there, and you're really going to notice that if you watch those videos and apply the concepts, you'll get better much quicker. So click the link down below, give it a shot. There's a refund policy if you don't like it. Check out some of Speed's content. I know you're going to enjoy it. All right, I'll see you guys there. So the first thing to note at level 1 is your skill build. You want to take your Q, your Arctic Burn at level 1, if your carry has a range creep secure. If they don't have a range creep secure, for instance, you're playing with a Slark or a Lifestealer, you can take your Q if you just want to solely focus on harass. For instance, let's say you're against a Pudge and a Centaur and you have a Lifestealer and you think you're going to win that lane over time, you want to focus mainly on killing them, you can take your Q as well. But if the lane is even and you're laning with someone with no secure, I recommend you take your W. Also, if you do not want to really contest too hard and you just want to shove the lane in and you're playing as a position 4, you can take your W and shove the lane. I know that's not really what we're focusing on here today, I just want to get that out. But yeah, as you can see, concept in the lane, very simple. Hide in the trees, pop your Q, and try to apply it to both the offlaner and the position 4. Keep in mind, a lot of people forget this, Wyvern Q only applies once. Yes, it only applies once. Everyone gets this wrong. They think every time you hit them with the Q, it resets the duration, because it feels like it should, right? It feels like it should be something like Veno W. It's not. It applies once. Every other auto attack is just a long-range auto attack. That's it. So hit everybody once. That is the key. That is the damage. The rest is, yeah, it's just extra attack range, which is okay. The next thing I want to note about Wyvern is what a lot of people would do wrong after their Q is down. I want you to take a quick look at the left side of the screen here. We got 43 damage, 2 armor, 285 movement speed. That is absolutely awful. That is some of the worst stats in the game. By the way, your attack range is 425. Literally, Wyvern at level 1 might be one of the worst trading, if not the worst trading heroes in the game when it does not have spells. Keep that in mind. And so what should you do when you don't have spells? Number 1, block pull camps and pull, or number 2, deny creeps. That is about it. Sure, the offlaner monster on the Dawnbreaker overextended a little bit, so we got some free auto attacks in, that's great. But after that ends, full focus on denying. Full focus on trying to keep the lane back. And that's all he does for the entirety of the wave. There is absolutely 0 point in trying to hit the offlaner. I really mean that. You're not even going to do any damage, and you're just going to end up tanking more from the creep wave. So please play it as you just saw. Moving on towards the 5 to 6 minute mark, we're going to realize is if you play the early game pretty well and your safe laner is a relatively sustainable hero, you don't provide that much kill potential, and often what you're going to try to do is just get levels in whatever way possible. Now there's a couple ways that you can do to make this happen, because really, guys, you have to keep your game plan simple. Get levels. Get to level 6, get to level 7, get to level 10. All of these timings are key on Wyvern. This is one of the most level dependent and level abusive heroes in the game. A lot of supports you kind of hit 6 and then it's like, alright, great. Like Ancient Apparition, for instance, you hit level 6 and then after that, unless you didn't max your W already, the levels just don't matter that much. They really just don't. And so on AA, you wouldn't want to push in lanes, right? Once you hit your 6, you wouldn't want to shove waves. You wouldn't want to do that because you don't have spells that do that, and your hero has a low cooldown nuke. And so AA basically would play like a roamer. Does that make sense? This is how you have to adjust your gameplay. Wyvern is not a roamer. Wyvern at level 4 is actually quite bad. I mean, of course it can have impact. It has slows and, you know, an anti-heal like any other hero. It still does stuff, but it doesn't do as much. And so stacking and pushing out mid, 9 times out of 10, is your best bet. Also, pushing out the safe lane. For instance, let's say his safe laner was a Luna, and that Luna was against a Batrider. Do you think the Luna could lane that? Probably not, right? It would probably end up being quite the disaster. Luna would die. and so Luna will jungle. When Luna jungles, that is when you take the safe lane and just shove it out endlessly. And that is the goal of Wyvern in the early game. You can respond to ganks, you can like TP in like he's doing here. Honestly, even this TP seems a little bit questionable. I don't know if anything is going to come out of him being here. But really, these rotations on Wyvern, typically not too good till you have your ultimate. I know I'm saying that a lot. It's just an important thing to note because of how your hero functions, and people play Wyvern too much like an AA, too much like a Rubik, right? These heroes that come online a little bit earlier. Now that he's level 6, he wants to get active. He wants to make a play. His team's not doing too well. He needs to get off a big curse so that his team can come back into the game. Let's talk about the factors that lead into a good curse. Obviously, you're just going to be thinking, surely the good factors are just people next to each other. And yes, that's true, but there's also a couple of other things to note. Number one, you want to make sure the person you're cursing is next to people who actually do auto-attack damage. Well, how Wyvern ulti works is your teammates can't do any damage, but you amp the attack speed of everyone who is affected by 65. So even early on to the game, people will just shred each other, absolutely shred each other because of the attack speed bonus. Now here in this clip, he's about to curse the Pango, okay? And the reason why this is good, even though the Quap is like basically dead, and you might be saying, oh, maybe I shouldn't, ulti this Pango because we want to guarantee that Quap dies. Quap still has half doom duration. She will die regardless. What's more important is that he ultis the Pango here, which will allow this Clockwork who's coming in from behind to chain stun the Pango and guarantee that kill. So this curse, even though I wouldn't necessarily have done it, because it requires a lot of like kind of foresight to see the Pango coming, and to know that, right, the Quap will still die. He still makes the play nonetheless. You can see Quap is just annihilating this Pangolier. He throws out the W to secure the Quap kill, which is pretty reasonable, you know. She's the higher priority kill, even though I think it would have happened anyway. It's the higher priority kill, and it's a beautiful engagement. And that is how you want your gameplay to look. You want it to feel like this very natural flowing gameplay where you just kind of end up at rotations. You just kind of end up in the right spot because you were pushing out mid. You're like, oh, something might happen top. And that is the difference between a good player or not. If you're staying mid and you are just like too focused on the creep wave, you're just staring at the creep wave, what's going to happen? Right? What's going to happen? You're just going to miss an entire fight. But if you're pushing in mid reliably, you're going to, number one, not die. So you want to push out mid, pay attention to whether or not you're getting ganked. That's the first thing to think about. And then the second thing to think about is whether or not your safe lane or your off lane is about to have an engagement. And the way you tell is, are my teammates pushing up towards the tower? That is the best way to know whether or not the enemy team will respond. If your team is hitting a tower, people will respond. Even in these higher ranks, that is the case. It's like kind of just human nature. Now in terms of items, to go over what IX did, he straight up rushed the Holy Locket. Now I said in one of my other replay analysis, I'm not a fan of this on Wyvern. Reason being is your cast ranges are very poor. If you look at your ultimate cast range, you can see it's actually quite short. Your W is very long, so that one's not too much of a problem. Your Q is okay, but Cold Embrace in particular is a bit of a rough one. You might be saying, oh, that looks pretty far. It's not terrible. It's just one of those spells where you have to be able to use it in clutch situations on people that can be caught out in very awkward situations that might be very far away from you. And therefore, without the Aether Lens, it can often be hard to get this E off. I will say, though, that the Holy Locket in the early game to simply use the charges on your teammates is really good. Because I think a lot of people don't know this. You can use the Holy Locket on your teammates, right? And it actually just gives them the HP. It's a little bit odd, but that is just exactly how it works. And then, yeah, the concept here, basically what a lot of you guys probably already know, is you take Cold Embrace, you buy a Holy Locket, you max it out, then you take the Cold Embrace heal talent, and it practically more than full heals whoever you heal. It's nutty. It really is. And then you buy the shard later on, if the game goes that long. Typically, if it goes 30-35 minutes, you buy the shard. The shard decreases Cold Embrace cooldown by 5 seconds, and all of a sudden you have a 10-second full heal. That also makes people immune to physical damage, and it gets pretty insane. Next, I'd like to talk about Mike's positioning in this fight. It's actually extremely good. There was like a bit of a misstep at one point because of a curse opportunity, but I'd like to talk about like what makes someone like really good at spell casting and positioning at the same time. This is a big key because not a lot of people see this type of stuff, but it's crucial to getting better. So as this fight breaks out, he's going on the Dawnbreaker, okay? Fight looks fine, he throws out his W, that's always how you want the fight to start. Maybe cast your Q, get out the damage, cast your W, great. You're not going to prioritize Winter's Curse and Cold Embrace unless you need to save someone right away, right? Unless the fight is going on the enemy's turn they initiated, then typically you're going to start with your ulti or your E. If it's on your terms, you're going to start with your Q or your W, right? Makes sense. After that, he kind of needs to back up. Right here, he saw an opportunity to curse these two people together. You can curse spell immune targets, which means he could curse the Pango next to TA. TA would kill the Pango. It's a super value ult. Unfortunately, he didn't get it. Once he realizes that he loses his vision, he starts running away. He starts to kite out, which is the right decision. He really does not want to get caught out of position. He wants to keep kiting back. But, what makes him so good is the fact that even when he's getting rolled on here, and most people would be panic running away and thinking, oh, the fight is basically over, I can't do anything, I have to wait for my teammates to essentially reset and re-engage, he's looking up. You can tell based on the way his camera's moving, right? I'll go back 10 seconds. You can tell based on his camera positioning that that's where he's still looking. So even though he's disengaging and running back, we will see this push up of the camera, right? He's like, I want to see what's happening. I need to see what's going on. And that's so important because now he gets a 2-man curse. The radius is really massive, and yeah, it's an easy kill onto the Phoenix, which then sets up for a nice kill onto the TA. And that's the value of the Wyvern. That curse is so high impact, it's insane. It sets up for 2 kills, 1 onto the mid laner. Another thing I'd like to set for a goal for all of you guys, for all your position 5 players out there, the goal is by the 25-minute mark to have 50 CS. In this game in particular, at 20, he has 42. I want you guys to get 50 by 25. Make it a goal for yourself, because it's really important to orient your gameplay around, right, around essentially hitting these timings, right? You're level 10, 11, 12, 15, even maxing out your Q is crazy value. You have a health talent of 15, that's pretty nice as well. And most importantly, I want you to shove waves and defend towers. Like, just by hitting creeps as Wyvern, you're actually going to more so shift into what your hero does best, which is sort of just defending towers and then counter-initiating. And that's exactly what you're going to see here. By the way, this is a great setup. Great play here. I think they actually don't get the kill. Yeah, freaking TA. But back to shoving waves, right? Over and over again. So once again, let's take a look at our team fight and see his positioning. So Roche is breaking out. It's good to use Cold Embrace in this regard. The only problem is obviously it can get you caught out, so he does heal up this clock. You do not want to heal people until they are out of vision, right? So if he healed the clock here, that'd be a hard grief. Healing him here is a lot more reasonable because there's less likely vision. It's less likely he'll be set up on. The only problem actually ends up being that he greeds out and tries to run around to this cliff, but they already see him, right? This cop can see him, and so he has no Cold Embrace, and then he doesn't fly over the cliff, and this actually puts him a little bit out of position. He does fortunately get the fly off, which nearly lets him get over the hill. Just keep that in mind, like, you always want to prioritize your positioning over your heals and your ults. And, yeah, he makes a slight mistake there, gets him punished and gets him killed. And I'm sure he, was kicking himself, as we like to say. Next, I'd love to talk about these great reactions. Number 1, I just want to point out the People's Gift. Always, guys, always optimize your neutral items. I cannot stress this enough. It is so key. Optimize your neutral items. Get the HP items. If you have an Ironwood tree and you see a Pupil's Gift, take it. Right? Unless you're a strength hero, then maybe you shouldn't. But you get the point. All this HP, it can be the difference, right? It can be the difference of keeping you alive or not. This upcoming play here, honestly, was mega questionable. I really do not understand it. But it sort of works out. We'll talk about why his reaction time is so key here. But yeah, kind of walking up this hill. I think he probably felt like he was safe because Quap shows bottom. And therefore, if Quap is showing bottom and he gets gone on, it could be a very advantageous fight. So there's some legitimacy there, which is like, hey, if I get gone on here, it can be legit. On top of that, instant reaction on the Cold Embrace. So maybe he did expect it, right? Because his reaction time was so good there that maybe he did expect for them to go on him. He's like, okay, I'm just gonna bait. And you can see the Cold Embrace keeps him alive all the way through a Sunray, which is nutty. And on top of that, he gets off this ulti at a really nice time, which actually ends up taunting the Quap and preventing the Dawnbreaker ultis. So extremely, extremely well done. A beautiful play. And then, yeah, he just continues to bait them in. And this is the key about, like, good supporting. A lot of people, when they're, like, sort of close to dying, they sort of freak out and then don't move. It's always important that every step, every inch of the way, baits people a little bit further and causes them to die, or causes them to potentially die, or at least waste time. And that's what happens with the Quap here. She blinks on him. I think she, like, accidentally got hit by a dagger, but he gets into the corner, tries to get his Cold Embrace off, doesn't. But still, ends up being a really good fight because the Quap overextends, she gets chain stunned into a bunch of silences, and it's a beautiful engagement. Next, I'd like to briefly talk about Cold Embrace and how to know when to use the spell. It is really one of the toughest spells in the game because obviously it makes your teammates not be able to move, but there's a couple. The main one is stuns. If your teammate gets shackled and you can't cancel the shackle for whatever reason, or they get Sven stunned and the Sven's about to hit them, that's when you typically want to heal them. The second one is this Bloodseeker interaction, which is, okay, the enemy team's completely dead, or basically completely dead, I'll just heal you casually. Casual heals, most of the time though, especially if it's around when a fight might break out, is not good. Generally, Cold Embrace is not used for HP, it's used to buy time and make people overcommit. That is the biggest advantage of Cold Embrace by quite a margin. And then, the last one is if they're just like man fighting, right? Like, let's say you're just man fighting a PA and it ends up going poorly, and you know, even if they're not stunned, the PA is going to run them down. So it kind of needs to be in times of desperation. The worst thing you can do is Cold Embrace someone who's like a 3rd HP but still has a BKB Satanic, and then you just get them killed because they can't actually pop them and they get set up on afterwards. And so that does happen a lot. It takes a lot of practice. I recommend, if you're trying to get this down, to watch a couple more examples. We'll do that in this video on the back half, but all right, let's get into it. All right, so this fight, in my opinion, is like an absolute beautiful display of patience from Mike, and it shows like a big difference in just decision making from, you know, the average player to someone like Mike. And as we see, fight breaks out, Penguin's rolling in, gets ruptured. Okay, pretty standard stuff to start. Now, a lot of people might consider healing here, right? They would consider healing here, but he doesn't. He goes for the ulti. Unfortunately, I will say, unfortunately, that ulti didn't get the TA in it. Otherwise, it would have been particularly good. Maybe they could have followed up with a lasso or doom onto the TA, who's a key target here, right? She's the right clicker of the enemy team, essentially. Doesn't get it. Still a decent one, just to set up future disables, which is kind of what we see here. Doom can then jump in and get off some key spells based off the curse, based off the time that the curse, sets up for. Next up, we see him put down wards. I always stress this in my videos. No, it's just not some niche thing. It's something you have to do every fight in the late game, especially during the nighttime, right? During the daytime, sometimes you don't really need it, right? The ward won't actually do much more than daytime vision will, but in the nighttime, it is more than important to put down the wards to see what is happening and allow your team to adjust. After that, he's going to kite out. No reason for him to even consider a heal onto someone like the Bat Rider, even if they were on a bad spot, because it would simply just get him killed, and the Bat Rider would likely be in a bad position after. Following that up, he continues to not panic. Kite out, kite out, kite out. Doesn't really have to worry about Dawnbreaker too much. Hero doesn't do that much damage really at this point in the game. And then once the Doom gets stunned, he's going to Cold Embrace. So it was like 20 seconds of fighting. No Cold Embrace, because there's no one he should Cold Embrace. There was a Clockwork on the left, but still, that would have put him brutally out of position. You don't want to do that, right? You don't want to like save a position 4 who's frankly not that valuable and put yourself out of position when you have low cooldown spells that can come into play later on, especially, multiple Cold Embrace. That's the main one. Ends up saving the Doom with the Cold Embrace because he held it. And that's a tough thing. You have to wait for these stuns, and you have to wait for your teammates to run out of options. He didn't curse anyone during BKB because he was panicking. He waited till BKBs were down. He waited till things were committed. Didn't overplay his hand in the fight. And just ends up saving the Doom. Turns into a really beautiful engagement and allows for them to head towards the high ground. All right, and they're going to get mega creeps. But nonetheless, I do just want to say as a bit of a disclaimer, this is not financial advice. The reason why I say that is because Wyvern and Wyvern's win rate does actually drop quite a bit, right? As the hero goes down in MMR, the win rate follows, and the main reason for this is because it's hard to play. It's very difficult. Hopefully this video kind of gives you the right insights, and it does give you the right insights on essentially knowing what you need to do, but still, the discipline to not cast your E, the discipline to not ulti the wrong targets when someone else is casting an ulti or when someone else is already stunned is very difficult. It requires a profound, I really mean it, it sounds so dumb, but a profound understanding of what's going on in a team fight and focus to not get distracted on random things. And that's hard. That is hard. But if you do get it down, Wyvern becomes an absolute menace. It's kind of like a hero like Nature's Prophet or Bat Rider. Most people just feed because it requires too much focus, it's too difficult to play, but if you get it down, you become a menace. Thanks for watching, I hope I see you guys in the next one, and I'm out. Peace! And that's all, but remember, before you leave, before you tune out, subscribe to the GameLeap website where we are going to help you get to the next rank. If you're stuck, click the link down below, and I'm out. Peace!